right, guys. So, my next guest is one that I'm really excited to share with you. We've become friendly over the years, kind of crossed in these digital comics streets. But now he is here to promote a comic of his own that is going live on Kickstarter on March 3rd. It's for Marcus Walker, Kingslayer Protocol, which is an amazing, like, kaiju and mech battle type comic, which just looks really fun. I'm really excited to get the issue in my hands. But here to talk with me about it is my friend Chris Yates. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's a good
Good.
Thursday night. All the
Yeah.
kids are in bed, so it's good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting. I know we've had this on the books for some time, and it's finally here. We're here to actually talk about it, and I'm just very excited to kind of share with you and your audience. And thank you again for letting me have this opportunity.
Yeah, no problem, man. So, of course, we're going to talk about Marcus Walker, but before we do, I want to talk about you a little bit, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so the way we met, I don't remember which campaign this was for, but I met you as like a comic publicist trying to help other people spread word about their books. And
Yeah.
you hit me up a few months ago and you were like, hey, I have a personal project I'm working on. It's not ready yet, but just putting the feeler out there to see if you'll be able to help when the time comes. I was like, okay, did not know this guy was a writer, right? There's a lot. You've worn many hats. So I just want to kind of go back to the beginning and just get an understanding of your career thus far.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. I mean, I've always loved comics. I mean, I'm a 90s kid, grew up with TMNT, Batman Begins, that whole kind of era of comics and IP and things like that. And so I've always loved it. I mean, I went to school for multimedia and film and things like that. But I was also into sports. So I kind of had this dual identity of sorts of like trying to balance sports with film. And then I was at Long Beach State. And so that's kind of like a very quick into the film sometimes, or USC, things like that. So I was always trying to balance that. And I did sports. I was lucky enough to be a scholarship athlete. And then I did that for 2.5 years. And then when that was done, I kind of had this moment of like, what do I want to do with my life? I did some traveling and things like that. And then I just had a real hard time of figuring out what it is I want to do. So I decided to kind of go back to school, get my master's, and then this is the part where it gets real. So just to let you know, basically during that time, my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and during that time, she basically was like, "Hey, your dream is to go explore and check out Hollywood. Like you have my blessing, so go do it." And so I was like, "Okay." So basically, I started, hitting up internships because I was still in school as a master's student. And so I was working for, Jumpstart Video Games. I was working for Bo Flynn as an intern, which is Dwayne Johnson's producing partner. And I always tell the joke, I'm like, hey, you're doing Black Adam. And like, can I read the script? And he's like, no. And like in hindsight, you probably should have. Like, no shade. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, you could have used a few more eyes on this. But yeah, and so I basically said, hey, like you don't have a spot to hire, but like what are the next steps do you think? Like, oh, you should go to an agency. Like you'll do good there. I'm like, cool. Can you get me an in? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, which one should I go to? And they're like, you should go to UTA. So I cold emailed UTA and then basically just made myself kind of the comic book person because you're like, oh, I want to go do comic book films. And back in the day, they all said you needed like 1 year of production experience or 1 year of agency experience. And so basically I just told UTA, I was like, hey, at the time I'm 29. I love comics and I just want to make this a thing at UTA. Is that possible? They're like, we don't know how to do it, but you seem smart enough. You figure it out. And so for about a year, I worked in production in terms of commercials with Robert R. Kellian, and we worked with PDs and DPs, Maddie Libatique, who did Iron Man, things like that, Hoyt Van Hoytema, Roger Deakins, and not to be name droppy, but just to kind of give you some context to like the level of UTA, how insane it is. And then an email went out basically saying, hey, I'm looking for someone who is in comics. And then I went and interviewed for this desk, and then I'm trying not to reveal too much. And then basically found out it was for Rick Remender's agent, so I worked for his agent. And then next thing you know, I'm quickly working for with Frank Miller, Donny Cates, Boom, and all these things. And then they're like, "So what do you really want to do? Like you're helping, but like what is it exactly?" I'm like, "I just want to help make comic book movies and things like that." And so I found the biggest comic book agent, and then I basically told him like, "Hey, I'm your guy. Like quiz me all you want." He's like, great, answer these three questions. And I'm like, boom, boom, boom. And he's like, okay, you're it. What do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to talk to what was it, Stephen Christie at Boom, because I love Boom. And so talked to Stephen, and then I started, talking to him about, hey, what are these projects that are coming up? What is your thoughts on James Tynan? And so, long story short, in that regard, is I started working with James Tynan and getting all these things going, and then Disney kind of caught wind of it, and Disney was like, hey, we love what you're doing. Is there a way of bringing that over here? I was quickly realizing that, the agency life was not really for me, because I don't know if you know anything about the agency life. It is a grind. Entourage is a documentary. It's not fake. and so I did that with Disney for a while, and then I did that for about actually a year and a half to 2 years almost. And I went to San Diego Comic Con, I went to New York Comic Con, being a representative of Disney. And then Bob Iger's like, hey, we're laying off 7,000 people and we're starting with your department. And I'm like, oh crap. Like,
Right.
what am I going to do? Right. And I'm a practitioner, or what do you want to call it? Practice of stoicism. And I really like try to meditate and things like that. So I did a lot of reflection and journaling. And I was just like, hey, I just spent the past 5 years trying to make this thing happen. And now it is completely fallen apart. I worked for one of the biggest agencies. I've worked with some of the biggest creators. And then I've worked with the biggest entertainment company on the planet. Like, I'm very grateful, but like, what the hell do I do now? So I was just thinking, I'm like, what is the thing I would regret most if I were to die today? Not to get too morbid, but it was just like, what are the things I would regret? And it's like, I came up with two ideas, and one of them was to marry my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and then the other one was to make a comic book. And then I was like, okay, how do I do that? Like, and I started just wrapping my head around the concept of like, what is it I want to do? What is it I want to say? And basically, it was just like, okay, how do I process what just happened to me into something that is fun and tangible? And then I kind of did the thing that most creators do. I looked for an artist, potentially collaborate. I got a lawyer, and then I just started uh, that whole creative process with Simone, who is my artist. So my artist is Simone Ragazzoni. He's done Dune, he's done Power Rangers, and we just started making the story. And so we just thought, okay, what are these things that we can do that are exciting and fun? And then we kind of put together a pitch packet and we pitched it around. And then I worked with one of my former publishers, and then that's kind of where we started. And so that was about a year, 2 years ago, 2 years ago. And now I am removed from the publisher. We were doing it on our own because I just felt there were some creative differences. And again, no shade, no talking bad about anybody, but it was just I felt like I should do this on my own because, as you've seen on the thing, I was able to secure some pretty heavy hitters on the covers, and I got a very let's say a very flattering pull quote by the one Steve Maeda, from the creator of One Piece. So it's yeah, that brings us kind of to where we are today. And so that's kind of like the whole creative process from soup to nuts as quickly as I could.
Nice. From soup to nuts. This there's an inside joke with myself and
Yeah.
several YouTubers. I don't know why, like the phrase soup to nuts was like new to one of us in the group. And so then like we had a challenge, like, okay, well, let's see how many of us can just fit this phrase in one of our videos before like the audience starts to notice. Cause the comic book community is a
Yeah.
pretty small one. And until you just said it, I had not used that phrase in any of my videos. So thank you. You completed the circle.
Check.
Right. But nah, and there's a couple of questions that stand out to me, right? The
Of
first,
course.
you said you were an athlete. What
Yeah.
sport did you play?
So I did football and track and field, specifically shot put and discus in high school, and then quickly realized concussions are a real thing, and then decided to not do football. And then so I primarily focused on shot put and powerlifting, which then I was able to compete at a pretty decent level. I went to Los Alamitos High School, set the record, and then I went to a JC because of concussions. I was I flunked math because I took a test, right, and they're like, okay, write your name and pay, like write your name, date, and I literally wrote name and date instead of Chris Yates and the date. I wrote name and date.
Sheesh.
And I was like, I'm not in the headspace to deal with math and concussions, and so,
Mm,
but it was a blessing in disguise because I went to a junior college, and then I was able to compete. I won JUCO state, and then I was able to get a scholarship at Cal State Long Beach, and where I threw I think 59 feet in shot put and 191 in the hammer.
wow, that's dope. I
Yeah.
did track and field in middle school, and
Mhm,
I was a sprinter. So like it was a 60 because they have a 60 in middle school, 100 long jump. I tried high
mhm.
jump once, and that wasn't going to be a thing. Same with the pole vault. The pole vault looks cool, but
It's
wasn't for
hard.
me. Yeah, yeah. The shot
Yeah,
put.
when
I was such a tiny kid. Like there was no going near the shot put for me. No
yeah.
discus throw, none of that.
Yeah, I was always kind of a bigger kid. I always like to say I always had that inner fat kid because for those who don't know me, I used to be 260, but I was, more muscle bound, and now I'm like 195, give or take, on a good
Mm.
day. So now it's like I have to show a picture to people to be like, "Oh, I was actually like a college athlete." And they're like, "No, you weren't." And I was like, "Okay." Then I show them the picture and they're like, "Oh."
So, and I think it's interesting. Like I like, you know, talking to athletically minded people. I feel like the sport makes a difference. Like there's just a different mindset for certain things. And like with track and field, a lot of times, like, yeah, you're competing against other people, but there's so much emphasis on like a personal best. Like I ran, a 5 minute mile. Like I hadn't done that before. And like, sure, someone else in my heat, I beat them, but like I'm still focused on the time. And, even with like a shot put, it's like, okay, can I throw it farther than I've ever thrown it before? And
Yeah.
that's different from, say, like football, where it's like, all right, I got this blocking assignment, missed the assignment, or made a catch, or what have you. Like it's just there's just different sort of aims. And I'm curious as like how you feel like the sort of track and field mindset has carried over with you into creativity because you spent a lot of time in the business of storytelling. And
Mhm.
most people might like, start with comics and then kind of find their way into media somehow. But you very much have been in the throes of the entertainment industry, but still very close to story. But I'm just
Mhm.
curious as to like how you feel like your internal wiring has led you to where you are now and has served you well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 100% connected because you have to always be competing with yourself. You always have to kind of carry that burden. Like, no one's going to make you throw that shot put. No one's going to make you lift that weight. Like, you have to do it yourself. And it's very much like no one's going to write this story for you. No one's going to market this story for you. No one's going to do anything for you. No one's here to save you. And so you kind of just have to do it yourself. And speaking specifically for me, I'm 5'10", so the traditional shot putter is like 6'2", 6'7", 350. So I look like a hobbit compared to most of these people. And when I just had to outwork them or outlift them. My primary strength was my strength and my speed because that's how I had to overcompensate for the height difference. And so I think how that kind of correlates or translates to storytelling in this process is like I just want this to happen. And so I have to make it. I just have to make it more like one foot in front of the other, basically. And so, to kind of give you more context to the story, so Marcus Walker, Kingslayer Protocol, is this story about two brothers, right? And this war is waging between Kaijus and Kingslayer Mechs, and Marcus is kind of forced into hiding because this event happens, and he doesn't understand what's going on in the world, and he's kind of angsty, kind of doesn't get it, and so he makes some choices, and then that ramifications of those choices kind of unfolds in our story. And basically that is the story I wanted to tell, was about brothers and family, and just kind of like, how do you keep going on with these people, these things? Because as I alluded to in earlier, it was like my mom passed away. And so it's like, how do you keep going on when like some of your biggest fans, your inspirations, they're gone. And so you just have to do it yourself because it's for you. And so, not to get like too preachy, but it's like one of those things for like the past almost a decade now, since my mom's passing. It was just like I wanted to go to Hollywood. I went to Hollywood. I was lucky enough to get into Hollywood because I know not everyone gets that opportunity. And I've always been evaluating and seeing how this translates, because it's your taste, and you have to articulate that in a way that agents, producers, fans, anybody, basically, you have to be able to communicate a complex idea at a very high level, but also be able to kind of switch gears and say it to someone who from like a third grade reading level, perhaps. And so that's the idea of like processing so much story and trying to understand and staying close to it, is just trying to keep myself educated. And it's like, okay, how do I use all the things I've learned to make a story that I feel is worth someone's time?
Mm.
Because I could have very easily put out a version of Marcus Walker, Kingslayer Protocol before, but it wouldn't have been the version I wanted to see. Like, if I was going with the mindset of like, hey, if I'm gonna make a comic book before I die, is this the comic book that I'd be proud enough to like die for? I know it's very dramatic, but it is what it is.
Mhm.
And the thing was, no. And so I basically feel like, okay, I'm gonna take the time to figure this out, keep working on it with my team and Simone and Taylor and Antonio, and just be like, how do we make this the best version possible? Like, if we get one shot at this, like if heaven forbid Marcus doesn't work, but if we got to that point, what is the one thing we want to say? And it's like, okay, I want to say something about brothers, and I want to say about something about family. And then this whole process kind of became this almost like meditative, I don't want to say therapy session, but just it was me processing like brotherly love, family, and grief, and but through kind of like the lens of like anime, Saturday morning cartoons, Big Hero 6, Ultraman Rising kind of fun. And that's why we're here. And so I think that's just kind of pushing that boulder up the hill, to use another metaphor. And then like that's kind of how you just one foot in front of the other.
Nice. And I think, just listening to your story, I feel like all the time you spent, whether it was agency work or like, PR work, it really helped. Like, because you're talking a lot about, ultimately the marketing process, right? Which,
Mhm.
you know, in a past life, I was a marketing professional. And
And music, right?
yep, worked in music and then had a whole deal teaching marketing to musicians. And what most people get wrong about marketing is they think that marketing starts after the product is complete, right? It's like, all right, marketing, they conflate marketing and promotion. And
Mhm.
it's like, well, no, marketing is like 95% of business activity. Like, from before you have a product in hand, you're thinking about how it best relates to the potential audience. And then, the whole process is really fun, right? Because if you do it right, it feels creative at every turn, right? Like,
Mhm.
even sort of turning the levers to say, all right, I've got this, Power Rangers meets, I don't know, driving Miss Daisy feeling thing, right? And it's like, it
Mhm.
sounded crazy in my head, but how do I say this in a way? How do I distill this down to a way where some guy in a suit gets it, and the guy that actually likes Power Rangers also gets it? Like, and it's fun to kind of get the wheels turning, but I'm curious to know like what the difficult part about that was for you. Like, was that hard to learn?
That's a good question. I mean, for my own product
Mhm.
projects, yes and no. And what I mean by that is it's something I quickly learned when I was at the agency. And they say you kind of have to be liquid in terms of like understanding how to express something because, like, as you just said, you have to condense this idea. And so I think for me specifically, what it is I wanted to do was I very much wanted to tell this story. Like, this is very much a story about Marcus and Caleb. Caleb's the older brother, and Marcus is the younger brother. And so this is the story to me. Like, yes, there's mechs, there's kaijus, there's this bombastic nature to it, and it's full of action. But at the heart of it is the brothers. And so I really wanted to write a story about brothers because I mean, not to air my personal business too much, but it's like, me and my brother have never seen eye to eye. And I just wanted to kind of write this story for us to have that process of like, hey, I'm not perfect. And I don't expect you to be, or, if I messed up, here's hopefully an olive branch to try and express myself in a way. Because I think the thing that I realized from agency Disney was that you just have to be authentic. I mean, that's all you can be, is just put yourself as much as you can. Because for me, that's what I resonated with. I mean, I read, I think, 700 books, comics, or some like I reviewed like 700 pieces of IP in the span of a year or something like that. And I had to be super detailed and articulate. And it was just the things that I kept coming back to was like the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey of just like, what does it look like for someone to become, start out as maybe nothing and turn into something? And so trying to articulate that in a way where everyone's like, hey, you're doing another mech book. And it's like, yes, it is a mech book, but my main character is not a mech pilot. Marcus is never in a mech suit in this story. He is not, his brother is. but he's not. And it's like, how do you tell a story about two brothers where the main character isn't the pilot, but maybe he's not even the hero of himself? Because I know, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's days where I don't feel like the hero of my story, but we strive to be. And that's kind of how I wrap my head around it. Is like I wanted it to kind of take the emotional core of, like, let's say Jason Aaron's writing
Mhm.
with the hard lines of Sean Murphy, and just mash them together with this like Joseph Campbell as Kiro's journey that looks like manga and Saturday morning cartoons. And so that's how I can speak it to you, because you get those references. And then
Yeah.
so to say it to someone else, like I say that detailed version, you understand it, but maybe not, the business suits. So that's what you say. Oh, it's Ultraman, Rising, or Big Hero 6, or Power Rangers, and they're like, oh, okay, I get that. But then when we get even deeper, and one of the potential stretch goals we have is a creator commentary. It's like my whole book is more of like a metaphor for like the creative process of me and my own processing with death, because of experiencing death at 26 and seeing, those things, and just being like, how do you articulate that where it doesn't make people feel uncomfortable, but you can just express yourself? So there's like the layer of like, the top layer is like, the painting, the Simone's beautiful work, it's the artwork itself, right? And then you kind of see like, oh, it's this genre, it's, sci-fi, um, anime, manga, cartoon inspired version. And then it's like brothers, and then at the very core of it, it's my own process of like, how do you write a story about yourself? Because like I had originally written the book where I was like, oh, I feel like I'm Caleb. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm Marcus. And then I realized it's just all me with Simone and my partners, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I am the one who wrote this story, and it's very much me. And that's what, as a creator from this angle, I'm trying to learn how to articulate is like, I've heard so many people tell me how to do things, and I've learned and I've seen it, as you said, in kind of in the shadows. And now it's like, hopefully being able to communicate this to you and to, your listeners is just like, that's what I hope to do. And I'm not boring.
Nah, not at all. Definitely not boring. So you this book is about, brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
And sort of processing some of that stuff from, your own life. Are you the older or the younger brother in real life?
I'm the older by 9 years.
Okay. Okay. See,
Yeah.
I figured so, but I wasn't sure. So I am
Yeah.
also the oldest of my mom's kids. I've got my younger brother, I'm 4 years older than him. And then my sister, I've got her by 10 years. Um,
Mm.
and dang, she's about to be 25. That's crazy. But my sister, it's funny because we're so far apart, our relationship is very much like father-daughter type relationships. And it's weird, like kind of stepping in and out of that role. I think now that we're like both like adults, like full adults, it's like it's easier for us to just be siblings. And, I really get to kind of just relish and be proud of her accomplishments and stuff. She's gotten med school. It's like it's just fun. It's fun being an older brother. Um, but being an older brother means being pragmatic when your sibling is probably a bit more imaginative, right? Like there's a lot of responsibility that you take on. And I'm curious because it's like you're the older brother, but you said that you identify more with the younger brother in your story. And
Mm.
like, how so? How do you see yourself?
So I'll give you a tease, right? It
Okay.
was like when the book opens up, it starts with like a narration. I don't use too much narration, but specifically for how the book starts and how it ends, there's a narration. And it was kind of like my thought process of grief. But then I quickly realized how I had written it. It was actually about the creative process. And then I realized it's kind of like whatever you want to infer on it. And so I said it that way because I was like, how do I articulate what it is that I'm trying to learn and understand and create, just that whole creative struggle. And you said you had a parental type figure for your younger siblings. And so it's like I've had moments in my life where I took those moments and put them in the book. Caleb does something, he teaches Marcus a moment, and Marcus rebels, and that leads to consequences. And trying to understand that and be like, hey, was that me in the moment? Was I the one wrong there? Or was my brother? And so that's the thing I kind of struggled. And so I was trying to see it from both points of view of like the older brother, the younger brother, or even the parent. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we have a kind of a quiet stoic type father figure in the book, but I didn't want him to be this mean, nasty, kind of in the shadows, kind of stereotypical military father. Like I wanted him to be very much resembling my father, of someone who lived in a generation where they never spoke about those things, but he is trying to communicate like, I don't know how to do this, so I'm going to put it on my oldest son to figure it out because he can figure it out for me. And so to kind of use my real life example of like, hey, my wife just died. My oldest son, I don't know how to talk to my youngest son, so maybe my oldest son can help me learn. And so that was kind of like how I did all these things of like, how do I express that creativity? And so I try, again, it's called Marcus Walker. So I try to explain it through the older brother, but then I quickly realized like, I think I may have been wrong, but I was just trying to do the best that I could. And that's the hard part, is admitting that you're wrong, but also trying to admit you're wrong in a comic book.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to give you a slice of my life in a very kind of unique packaging. And I hope you enjoy me going through my struggles in a way. So
Mhm.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it does. It's funny, like, I don't know. I'm fascinated with the creative process. That's why, like, this part of my job is my favorite part. Like, talking to creators, understanding what goes into making a thing. Because no matter how many of you guys I talk to, I never come away from these conversations thinking, like, yeah, I could do that. And that's like, it's just, I don't know, it works for me somehow. But I was just there's two characters that came to mind while you're speaking, right? Like one,
Mhm.
just in regards to like just having um, interplay in a comic where it's like, okay, we have opposing ideas. Who's right? Who's wrong? How do I even present these opposing ideas without telegraphing which I think is correct? Right. Like,
Yeah.
so Icon's always the book that comes to mind for me, right? It's old conservative, uh, basically black granddad with, wisecracking teenage sidekick. And, you know, they're constantly like jabbing at each other. But then there's also like, these moments where it's clear like we don't necessarily see eye to eye. We don't necessarily understand each other, but I've got your back. And, I know you've got mine in a pinch. Like, yeah. So anyway, not to get too into Dwayne McDuffie storytelling, that's something that always like is fascinating to me as an idea of just that done right. And then the
Mhm.
other thing that came to mind was just kind of like trying to do the right thing. I was just doing an overview for the recently released Panther's Prey omnibus, and
Mhm.
that basically concludes Don McGregor's run across like several different titles. But he came back to writing T'Challa like almost a decade after he had left before. And he talks about how like writing T'Challa always came easy to him. Like the world building around Wakanda didn't necessarily like that took more effort. But at his core, T'Challa is just a young guy trying to do the right thing and be a good leader. And like so that's his moral compass and that's what drives all of his decision making and actions on the page. And I think like what I hear when I hear you talking about like, okay, here's how I'll pitch this story, depending on who my audience is. It's like it's really just that those themes are universal. Like we all have people, we all have like there's generational divides, even with my siblings, right? Like we're not that far apart. We're not a generation apart, but we're far enough apart to where like I have more life experience. I may value things differently than they do. And
Mhm.
it's like, so it's like, but everybody has that. And even if you don't have like an older brother, younger brother, you got a cousin, you got a friend you met at school that doesn't take things seriously enough. Like, and so it's like there's all of these things. And I think that's what's really cool about storytelling. Like somehow finding a way to communicate this thing that we all see and experience on a daily basis, but can't really put words to or articulate all the time. But it's like you read it and it's like, oh snap, I see me. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great thought because one of the books I can recommend you is called Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday, and that's exactly one of the things he said is like how does something become a perennial bestseller, right? How does something stay in publication for so long? And one of the things was, what are the core elements of being a human? Like what is it? Is it family? Is it love? Is it hate? What are those things that is universal? And so that's the reason. Not that I was how do I phrase this? I knew I wanted to write something and I wanted it to be something that could, not necessarily be topical because that's just not what I wanted to write about, but I wanted to see more universal and just be like, if I'm lucky enough for this to be a success, how can I kind of build it so that it can at least be evergreen as best I can as a first time creator? Again, I'm not saying I'm I'm no James Tynion or Sean Murphy by any means, but at the same time, as a starting person, as a starting creator, how can I set myself up for, to succeed as best I could? And it was like, how do I just tell my story that is true and honest and hopefully connecting, as you said. So
Yeah. And so getting into, I mean, we're gonna get into this book. I keep saying I'm teasing it, guys. I'm teasing it. But you've had this career, like just interacting with all of these creatives, right? Just going through this press list, just humor me for a second, right? We've
okay.
got in your orbit, Sean Murphy, Rob Guillory, right? You just mentioned James Tynan, Rick Remender, right? Like, but these are all people who are known for sort of just being like these creative powerhouses, yes, but also very enterprising. Like, and I mean, I've only been reading comics, what, this year is, wow, this year is year seven. Um,
Mhm.
but like 5 years of the channel. But it's like those are the names that kind of became stars. And it, if LeBron is like the face of player empowerment in the NBA, James Tynan might be the face of creator empowerment for this new generation, right? But you know, so is Sean Murphy, right? Like a lot of the conversations I see with him are about just kind of like handling your business. Um, but anyway, all that to say, you're dealing with like these kind of superstars, right? Even Rob Guillory with Chew, like really like just kind of planted a whole new flag for what it means to be a creator and to be successful. Um, and even just putting all these people together just feels like, wow, no pressure, but it seems like a lot of pressure. But I'm curious to like what continuing that sort of legacy means to you and why it was what drew you to those sorts of people. Because I mean, branching out and doing this project, obviously you had to call on some of those names to just help you out, whether it was for advice or just, hey, can you give this script a once over? And what was it about them that got your attention?
That's a phenomenal question. Seriously, that's a great question. I think the honest answer I can give you is that they were I felt like I saw myself within their storytelling. And they were smart enough to realize that potential publishers, you know, may not have their best interest. Again, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but they realize that, like, hey, yes, your book can get optioned into a movie, but that option is only going to be like 30 grand. That's not going to sustain you for the life. I mean, and even if your book does get optioned, it may take 2, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 years before you even see that thing come out. And it's like, are you going to bankroll? And even then, you don't know if that thing's going to be good or not. I mean, you hope and pray, but not everything's going to be a success. And even if the book or the movie is a success, it may not be, it may not be Endgame. You know what I mean? It might be more like Hellboy Golden Army, which was loved by fans, but it didn't necessarily, light the box office on fire. But fans loved it. So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you kind of have to just do your own thing and just figure a way out. And so for me, I was like, okay, I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of players and a lot of publishers. I kind of know what the landscape looks like for said deals. More often than not, those aren't maybe the most creator friendly deals, let's say. And Image is so condensed in the best way because so many people are going to it. They're able to, bring all those voices. And it's like, I don't think they're going to come to me, right? And I was just like, I think Kickstarter is the way to go because then you get to basically create this entire narrative, this entire plan. And so to see people like James and Rick and, potentially Rob down the line and Sean to just be like, hey, Kickstarter is the way to go, because you get to control everything. Like it's all up to you. It's like, I would rather have it be on me than say, like, what if because of someone else? You know what I mean? Like, I would hate for my book to come out and it didn't work for said reason. But I can at least go to bed at night, put my head on my pillow and be like, hey, if this thing doesn't work, I can be okay with that because I gave it my all. Like I did everything I could, every single like for the covers, I picked those people specifically because I had a connection to those people and I was able to work out a deal or I was able to figure something out where I was like, hey, Sean and Rob, I went to them and I'm like, can you give me kind of like mentor advice? And they're like, okay, maybe think about this. Don't do that. And then I was just like, okay, how can I get you to be on my project? And, we were able to figure that out. And Sia, she was a friend of mine and I helped her kind of take that information that I learned, applied it for her for Neo Wonderland, and then that's why I worked with her. And then my friend Kevin Keene is like someone I'm going to be working with on another project down the road. And so I'm bringing all these like-minded people together to be like, how do we kind of build an ecosystem where we all can do stuff? Like again, I'm someone as a first-time creator, and I'm hoping I'm making sense because now I'm doing it in practice. But I've seen so many of these people do it, and it's like they all say, I don't want someone telling me how to dictate my book because if it doesn't work, you're stuck with that book for better or for worse. And then everyone's keep telling me like, you own it. Like you have to make it your thing. So if you can live with it, good. If not, you better off doing it on your own. And so that was kind of the mindset I came into like, okay, if I'm going to do this, how do I just make this 100% me? Like, for example, the guy who created my logo, Ryan Clark, he's the lead singer of a metal band. And so it's called Demon Hunter. They're a Christian metal band. And I'm not Christian, but I love their music and I love who he is. And so I was like, I was able to hire him as my logo designer, and I was able to hire Trevor, my old friend from a former publishing company, to be my editor. Like, I just brought in all the people that I had kind of met throughout the years collectively, and be like, you're the team I want to try this with. How do we go forward? And so, yeah, we're trying to learn, or I'm trying to learn, and we're figuring it out. And I did a lot of listening to podcasts from Sean. I mean, you can go. I think Sean's one of those untapped resources in terms of like sharing advice.
Mhm.
Because if you go through his thoughts of like potentially getting an Airbnb or having a partner who has, a higher income, finding those things like those little nuggets that you kind of have to sift through, like you're
Yeah,
panning through podcasts trying to find like notes and stuff like that. So I think just taking all of that and trying to apply it for myself and, just be honest and transparent and hopefully you connect because that's the scariest part about all this, right? Like even though we're friends, I'm still nervous. Like I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if your audience is going to, think I'm full of myself or not. But at the same time, it's like all I can do is be me and I hope that's good enough and share those experiences and knowledge.
for sure. And not like it's gonna work, right? Let's just look at this campaign. So you guys, you're watching this, the campaign's live now. Or at the very least, we're like 2 days out. But I'm looking at this pre-launch. But this is the campaign page for Marcus Walker, Kingslayer Protocol. Now, what's funny is like before I got into comics, I wasn't big into like kaiju mech stories. Like
Mhm.
I was familiar with Power Rangers, and that's probably the only example of like kaiju versus mech stuff. Now, my
Yep.
wife, she's all on Pacific Rim and like, what's the other one? Pacific Rim
Evangelion and
2.
Gundams. Okay.
I was trying to think of what else my wife watched. I just realized it was just a
Ah,
sequel to the same movie. But
ah.
but like no, but she's all into like monsters, big action. We watched Godzilla minus zero or my is it minus
Mhm.
zero or minus one?
Yeah.
That was really cool. But anyway,
Phenomenal.
that's an aside. But the point is, I wasn't into like this sort of genre stuff
Mhm.
before I got into comics. I've started reading the Power Rangers Boom Studios run, really good stuff. But this first thing that came to mind, Megazord. Like, oh snap. But so I'm gonna read a little bit of this. So as the war wages on between Kaijus and Kingslayer Mechs in New Honolulu City, Marcus Walker is forced into hiding under the watchful eye of his family, determined to protect him. His unexpected turn of events forces him to confront the relentless dangers of his choices head on, as sinister forces dredge up old secrets from his bloodline's past and threaten his future. This is a 48-page comic, and like Chris said, if you're a fan of Power Rangers, Big Hero 6, Ultraman Rising, like this is right up your alley. Um, and there are covers by Sean Murphy, Rob Guillory, and Kevin Keene, and Sia Ohm, friend of the show. So like but looking at this, it doesn't look like a first time project. And I should know.
Thank you.
No, no problem. Because I talk to a lot of creators who are crowdfunding their comics, and sometimes there are those that just stand out. Um, Gosh, I mean, even look at the composition of this page and like the creativity in the panels. Like,
Yeah.
just
So
scroll.
the funny thing is, sorry, I don't mean to
Yeah.
cut you off, but it was just so if you know the hero's journey, right? And then like the hero kind of goes from one land to the other. This is actually the first time you meet Marcus. And so if you know the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell, there's always a traveling moment. You know, they come with a guide, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you look, what would a modern day version look like? And it's a train. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is kind of the way I can kind of homage that, where it may or may not be as obvious to some people, but if you know kind of that traditional storytelling structure, I was like, how do we make this fun? And as I said earlier, of like, you never feel like the hero of your own story. And I very much wanted this to be like, how do I convey Marcus is like an average person who is not a mech pilot? And so he would be on his phone looking through all this stuff. So as you see, he's looking through like a news feed, he's looking through a podcast, a commercial, and then like a crazy cat video. So I was like, how do I make it feel kind of, like almost as Marvel says, it's outside your window. You know what I mean? Like, how does this feel like, even though this feels 5 minutes into the future, you know, how can I connect to him? And that was kind of the creative idea. So
That's dope. I love the colors. Like I love how bright everything feels. Even in the dark, you've got this like sort of neon hues on
yeah.
things. Um, so all right,
Oh,
okay. And there's an artist edition.
yeah, there should be. I mean, you can maybe refresh it. It should pop up.
Okay,
I put that up before we talked.
got you. Okay.
It might should be at the end. There
Ooh,
we go.
wow. Okay.
So the artist edition is very much like I said, a manga homage of like, hey, we're not shy about what it is we do. Like as you can see, it's super inspired by all those comps, and we are going to be selling an artist edition, and this is going to be the only version where you can buy Sean Murphy's cover in black and white.
Mm,
And so this is what it's going to be. It's going to be just big, bombastic fun, and then you get to see it in Simone's art. So this is all done by Simone. Those are his sound effects. Those are his halftones. That's all him.
wow. Wow. And so just to let you guys know when we're filming this, there's a huge discourse about, whether or not comics or manga have overtaken Western comics and so on. And it's like, whether you believe that or not, it's safe to say quite a few Western artists are absolutely influenced by manga style art. And for me as a reader, I've always been like, well, I need color in my comics. So
Mhm.
manga doesn't always work for me. But I just had the epiphany earlier today, which was you feel stupid when you have epiphany sometimes. It's like, oh wait,
Right? How
artists
did I
are
not know this?
right. But it's like artists are influenced by manga because when comic artists draw, it's not in color yet. And so
Yeah.
it's like the really great ones, like Sean Murphy included, it's like you get foreground, midground, background without color as a cheat. And it's like
Mhm.
it's done really well. And I think that's why manga like just looks so dynamic, even if I still need color in my comics.
No, and I agree because sometimes you don't need all the information to make it to have the story do it yourself, because like we all hallucinate these stories in our head, and it's like you don't need every single detail, but you need just enough to just kickstart your, not to use a pun, but like kickstart your imagination and just let it go. And so I think this version, like I love both versions, but there is something super special to me about the black and white or halftone version, because I've been working with Simone on this for 3 years, and Marcus is this file that has lived in my photo album. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
been this little secret story I've had in my phone for years, and I've been looking at these grays, these halftones more than the colors, because the colors are amazing, but Antonio came later in the process. But these tones I've seen since day one. So
Mm,
I've fallen in love with this version. And I love the color version, don't get me wrong. But to me, like as of right now, this story lives in my head as black and white. So
nice. My dog is barking. I apologize if you guys hear that.
Oh no, you're good.
All
Can't hear
right,
it.
cool, cool. Where my baby girl just turned a year old, and we're prepping for her birthday party. Thankfully, Amazon is a thing, and they come all times of night. It's weird how they achieve that 1 day shipping. But anyway, um, so you're talking about like just having these files living on your hard drive forever and working on this project for such a long time. And you would think this is a setup for a great question, but really, it's just a reminder that right now we're 2 hours away from the release of J. Cole's The Fall Off. And I just couldn't leave that parallel unsaid. Very, very excited about this album. So Marcus Walker, Kingslayer Protocol, this just looks really fun. Like it looks, first of all, everything that we've talked about, we have not necessarily focused on the fun because we're talking about kind of the central
Yeah.
of the story. But it's like to have that set up and then look at this campaign and like look at these preview pages. I'm just like, I cannot wait for this. Like, I know more than most about this book, and I'm still just like, I gotta have my hands on it. I cannot wait to see this. So it's a 48-page book. Now, are we handling this like this is part one of an ongoing story? Is this a self-contained issue?
Yeah, so it's an ongoing story if we're lucky enough to do it, because if we're going to be doing everything through Kickstarter, if we're able to do more, we'll start with Kickstarter. And then if we're fortunate enough to be successful and, there's a demand for it outside of that, we'll talk, but it's going to be strictly through Kickstarter. This is basically part one of arc one. But again, how we said earlier is like if for whatever reason maybe fans don't respond, it still says everything we want to say in a very contained story. So we tried to do kind of like the compact style writing, because as we all know with Absolute Batman, Scott Snyder and Nick just cram so much storytelling into those pages. And so Marcus originally was 12 issues. And then when I decided to, as a team, we decided to, go on our own and like, how do we save time and money and just really tell a very concise story? We took those 12 issues and then we condensed it into 6 issues and basically said, okay, the original plan was this 48 pages stretched over, let's say, 3 to 4 issues. And
Mm,
then we condensed it, took out all the, not fluff, but, really tried to get to the heart of it, of like what really mattered. And that's what it is. It is a very self contained 48 pages that does leave on a cliffhanger. But at the same time, fans can still feel satisfied because, as we know, as comic book readers, sometimes you spend your hard earned money and don't always feel like you got your money's worth. And again, no shade to anybody else, but our primary goal was to be like, we want to give you fun, big, bombastic, kind of kinetic energy, but with a very much rooted in the center of heart and family. And so, yeah, that's what we did. And you, how we made it our own in terms of like the colors and fun was that I'm super into metal and kind of how that like kind of do it yourself attitude. And so there is a lot of music or inspired references that some people may or may not get in terms of metal bands. And so it's a way to kind of, homage those things. And so for me, when I see this, like I hear metal, I hear anime, because when you see animes and they have like that intro music,
mhm.
that's what we were trying to replicate.
Nice, nice.
So
Yeah, I'm crazy excited for this campaign. And, unlike me, you guys get to go back it right now. You guys are about 30 days out from, having this campaign funded successfully and seeing books on the way. And I am at least 30 days ahead of seeing this campaign launch. But at least I got it pre-saved, right? I got the
thank you.
notifications on. Hey, no problem. So I don't know if you guys know this. I'm gonna take this off the screen. Let's focus on us. But I don't know if you guys knew this, but Kickstarter has a mobile app. Like Kickstarter has an iOS app, and you can get push notifications when campaigns go live. I got a backer survey for what was it? I think it was the SWAT Cats book
Mhm.
that I kickstarted a little while ago, or backed, excuse me, a little while ago. But anyway, I was floored when I found out Kickstarter had an iOS app, and it's one of those things that I have to kind of just hide. in a folder on my phone, or else I will like back campaigns all the time and then look at my bank like, what happened?
I know there's so many things, like there's so many options nowadays in terms of like Kickstarter, streaming. I mean, your LCS is filled with, Marvel and DC Image, all the big things. And so I totally get what you're saying. And so to kind of reference or to put a nice button on that with the Kickstarter, the team really wanted to make sure that people felt like this project was just personally handcrafted. Like, again, to not repeat myself too much, but again, I really want to make sure people know that it's like this took 3 years and we love every part of it for better or for worse. And I just wanted to make sure that, we're not looking to do a cash grab. We're not looking to do 1,000 covers. Like, we have 5 covers and they're all handpicked by us, by the team, because they all mean something to either Simone or myself. And, we're not trying to overextend. The book's done. And so we're not like the stretch goals are going to just making sure we add back matter, hardcover stocks, maybe a UV spotlight if we're lucky. We really want to make it a premium experience for those people who are willing to, take a chance. Like, because at the end of the day, I can say all of this, but it doesn't matter until the book's in your hands and you get to read the story and see the art that we've put in. And so I just really appreciate everyone kind of, giving us the opportunity. I really just want to hit that home because it's important to me because I know not everybody maybe puts that forward. So yeah.
Yeah, nah, it's again, the effort shows, like even just in the Kickstarter pre-launch page, like I'm really excited to see how this campaign goes. I'm gonna, like I said, this video is gonna go live the same day the campaign does, so that you guys have the full 30 days to discover and see for yourself, and watch the stretch goals get reached and decide if you want to up your your campaign pledge to make yours a little bit better. Fall into all the trappings of Kickstarter, as we often do. But yeah, no, seriously, just as a homie, I'm very proud of you and the work you've done, and I'm excited to see where this takes you. I'm proud that you have followed this dream for not just the last 3 years, but all the way from undergraduate, like, and taking a chance, and taking your mother's words to heart, like all of that, all of like this is the culmination of all of that. So I'm really excited for you to kind of have this moment and bask in it. And hey, in 30 days, we will have a toast to your victory. And it'll be fun.
My friend, you're gonna make me cry.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's no. It's everything you just said. Like it's one of those things where those things are starting to kind of like bubble to the surface a little bit, and it's like you're again just to peel back the curtain, just to be transparent with everybody. You're the first person I'm talking to about this project, and like I'm nervous to make sure because like I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job, and like I don't want to waste people's time because people are going to work and they're going, they're listening to this on their car ride or maybe at the gym or maybe that's what I do. But you know what I'm saying? Like I know people have very limited bandwidth and I just want to be mindful of that. And so to hear you say that as a friend and then as, someone's voice I respect in this industry, like it's very gratifying and I'm very just very grateful because I don't want to get emotional because I don't I'm my goal is to not get sad or sappy too much on podcasts because it
Right.
is 3 years of work starting to kind of release into the world. So I'll just say thank you, my friend. Thank you for being there for me and always, giving me this opportunity. Like 3 years ago when I told you about this, you were like, yeah, let's do it. And then, it was a lot of start and stops, and here we are finally doing it. So thank you for being you. Seriously.
No problem, dude. No problem at all. So, just to make it easy for you guys, you can go to comicsaredope.com/Marcus, and that'll take you directly to the Kickstarter page so that you can back this campaign. I'm very excited for it. Chris is also excited for it. Where can they follow you if this campaign is over by now?
Yeah, they can follow me primarily on Instagram. It's CYG47, or they can go to my website. It's called crushyourgoals.com. I pretty much have those two handles. So CYG47 or Crush Your Goals. And then please, if you can, follow Simone Ragazzoni, my artist. This book would not happen without him. Like, I look forward to seeing what people think of his work because it is I mean, it speaks for itself. And yeah, please check it out if you can and continue to support Comics Are Dope.
Dope, man. Thank you. Thank you. And
Of course.
with that, you guys stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.